we have identified some very, very interesting anomalous type of aircraft.
Traffic is quite luminous and is exhibiting some non-ballistic motion. Over.
Move very rapidly at any speed or whether any direction it wanted to go. Why it could change and go to the right or the left or go crossways without hesitating a bit.
What do you think it was?
Well, if they call it a flying saucer, that's what it is.
EWA 517, do you want to report a UFO? Over. Negative. We don't want to report.
Look, it wasn't my worst Wednesday night.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Smiles Lewis, and this is another live edition of Anomaly Now, straight out of Austin, Texas. This is the Wednesday, June 28th, 2023 edition of this weekly news roundup as a function of the 501c3 nonprofit Scientific Anomaly Institute, aka Anomaly Archives. Thank you for joining us. Last week we had to cut the show short because we had record-breaking heat that then turned into some dangerous, crazy storms, which as I sat here looking out the window, realized I had to take precautions with cars, computers, etc. And so we abruptly ended the show. This episode is going to be a little different as well because, well, it's been another insanely hot day, record-breaking heat, and just a personally, emotionally trying day. And we do hope to have some interesting new variations on this weekly live show very soon. Details forthcoming, but suffice to say that you'll be seeing some new faces and more talk about what is in the latest and greatest entries on our Anomaly Archives Flipboard, which I will briefly go through momentarily as we start this show for you tonight. So, of course, if you're unfamiliar with our 501c3, you can go to anomalyarchives.org. That's anomalyarchives.org. And there you can find links to all kinds of things, including the Flipboard. You can sign up for our infrequent digital email newsletter, as well as find past issues of the newsletter here at the website. And a whole wealth of other information. There is also the Flipboard that I mentioned where we aggregate all the crazy, amazing, anomalous news stories that pass our feeds, our eyes, our senses. Who knows, soon they'll be beaming them straight into our brains, but not without your permission, of course. So some of the amazing articles: Captain attacked twice by orca says they're developing better anti-boat strategies. Pretty freaky. Duo may have just broken record in catfish capital of Texas. Yes, all those wonderful stories of giant catfish lurking at the bottoms of lakes all around the country. There's yet another documented biggin. This interesting article: New York City schools introduce mindful breathing practices to K through 12 curriculum. Really wondering if that's not the transcendental meditation efforts of the TM org that people like David Lynch are members of, that sometimes get criticized as borderline cult, but who also have done some amazing work in educating groups, including school kids, on the use of meditation, thoughtfulness, mindfulness, breathing. Very simple ideas that I think actually should be taught. Sans religious or spiritual overtones, but nonetheless. Some other amazing articles passing by. I'm not sure if this is sciencetimes.com. Is that a reputable website? Human ancestors briefly coexisted with dinosaurs before extinction, study reveals. Somebody please tell me whether this is a hoax article or not. Is that real science, or just some creationists trying to pull the wool over our eyes? Lots of information, of course, coming out about the whistleblower and the movement through Congress of the testimony, etc., related to that. In fact, some of the things that we'll cover this article over at UFOs-scientificresearch.blogspot, Jim T. Westwood, some information about his crash retrieval program research, all of which is being talked about via in the context of Jacques Vallée's Forbidden Science, apparently Volume 5, which I have not yet had the chance to crack open. I did get a copy and am very excited because every edition of every volume of Jacques Vallée's Forbidden Science is a treasure trove of history, notes, and really gives you the true spirit and identity of that amazing UFO researcher. Meanwhile, some of those other articles that we were going past, Congress doubles down on explosive claims of illegal UFO retrieval programs. This over from thehill.com. Lots of links there. And the fellow who has been critical of Jacques Vallée's latest work, the Trinity case, the alleged 1945 crash of an avocado-shaped object, you should really check out his expose on that case, even as I don't like some of tone and some of the things he's complaining about seem superficial. There is definitely problems with that case that's been promulgated by Jacques Vallée and Paulo Harris, but he has this article, Douglas Dean Johnson's, written on June 24th, that World UFO Flying Saucer Day, an anniversary, of course, Kenneth Arnold's sightings. This article, Senate Intelligence Bill gives holders of non-Earth origin or exotic UAP material 6 months to make it available to Arrow. So big stuff going on there. But if, again, you want to look back on the nature of UFO crashes, stories in terms of the history of the ufology community and its history, you should, of course, check out The Saucers That Time Forgot, a blog curated by Kurt Collins and Claude Foxstrom. This one coming out about a week ago, June 22nd. And again, all of these can be found over at our news aggregator Flipboard site, including this other one, oldest known Neanderthal engravings were sealed in a cave for 57,000 years. Another French cave discovery. Adversarial search for neural basis of consciousness yields first results. Have not had a chance to dive into that, but it seems rather interesting to me. And then there is this, that my dad was a famous alien abductee. I thought he was a joke. Now I'm not so sure. But before I get to that, again, there's some great other articles, including this one from Texas Monthly, Reality Check. There's almost certainly no serial killer in Austin. Pray that that's the case, or I hope that's not the case. I hope it's the case that there is no serial killer. Meanwhile, other interesting articles about Texas history possibly being in danger. And this great conference going on, or that already occurred over in France. Astronomers, scientists, and experts convened in Paris, France to study aerial mysteries. Some articles about Philip K. Dick, of course, who I'm very much enamored with. And this guy, is it Chris, what's his name? Chris Lido interviews Klaus Svahn of the Archives for the Unexplained over in Sweden, talking about the mystery ghost rocket cases that he's an expert on. And I think that's just fascinating stuff. Just so much great stuff. A little mini documentary on James Forrestal that features Peter Robbins, that he is, in fact, the person who made me aware of this. There's apparently also some new documentary online, docu-series, and I believe it's based on this story, Ayahuasca and Holy Water, how 4 missing children were found in the Amazon jungle, which involves a shaman having visions induced by ayahuasca, and that seemingly helping find the missing children who survived a plane crash. A crazy, crazy story. And other amazing stuff. This upcoming SCU, Anomalous Aerospace Phenomena Conference that's going on. That's online only this year, and I think more moderately priced. So you may want to check that out, and some other links there. RFK Jr.'s White House bid is a mix of nostalgia and conspiracy theories, etc. So much to cover, but as I mentioned, this Huffington Post article, My Dad Was a Famous Alien Abductee. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but suffice to say, I really encourage you to read this. I think it's a very powerful piece, seemingly, allegedly written by the child of this man who was a Wyoming rancher and who succumbed to the challenges of overcoming his apparent alien abduction, contact experiences, UFO sighting, seemingly descended into poverty, and was the butt joke of the community. And the son is expressing his regret at having not been there when his father died, and having ridiculed him along with everybody else. There's some very great points made in this, but it really comes down to, we've got to stop the ridicule of people. And as much as any of us might be get a kick out of the silly jokes that are often made, he makes reference to all the types of ways that the culture has made fun of people who've claimed these experiences. He even quotes the recent NASA conference, wherein they talk about the dangers and problems of the ridicule factor. So this is a very powerful and personal account, but with lots of material, including links to really not very good video of his father's hypnosis session. He was apparently hypnotized by Dr. Leo Sprinkle, and apparently appeared on the 80s show, the 1970s, 80s show. That's incredible. I have fond memories of watching that with my mother, and that kind of informing my interest in so many of these subjects, early exposure to these ideas, also other fiction culture that helped instill these interests in me. But yeah, this Huffington Post article over at HuffPost.com, highly recommend. There's at least one anachronism in this that causes me pause and makes me wonder if the author is misremembering. Surely that would be the case given what he's alluding to, but he talks about being in soup kitchens because of his father's financial difficulties, and the talk of things like remote viewing and the face on Mars. And I'm thinking to myself, if he was a child when this occurred, that those things were not really known then. But then again, maybe his father was very well informed and exposed him to those ideas even at that age. But regardless, I highly recommend that you take a look at this article. There's some very good links, very interesting links, and good writing here. It's a very powerful piece, so check that out. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and for the rest of the episode play about a 30-minute clip from a December 2020 episode of Anomaly-NOW. Yes, we were doing it all the way back started in mid 2020. It was, of course, started at the height of the lockdowns and the pandemic, and it was ultimately turned into a way of promoting, at the time, the 6-week, every Saturday for 6 weeks Streamathon fundraiser that we were doing. And I'm going to play a series of clips that we played on that show back in, I believe, December 23rd, 2020, and that will be it for the show tonight. So sorry if you were expecting the traditional news roundup, but just like I said, it's been a really rough day, folks, and I hope you all have better days. And with that, here we go. For those of you not familiar with myself or the Anomaly Archives that I founded in 2003, we are a 501c3 nonprofit, the Scientific Anomaly Institute, aka Anomaly Archives. In 2003, I founded the organization with about 1,000 books that I donated as the starting foundational collections of the Anomaly Archives. It is established with the mission and goals of preservation of research materials, not just popular literature, but more importantly, perhaps, is our total collection, which is over 7,000 titles now. These range from subjects such as Atlantis and alchemy to cryptozoology, as I mentioned, Fortiana after Charles Fort, magic, conspiracy, parapolitics, and of course, some of my favorites, parapsychology and its sub-areas of the paranormal, ghost hunting and ghost investigations, hauntings, poltergeist, but even more so, the subject of UFOs, which you'll be hearing a lot about over the next several weeks. Some of the things that we'll be doing over the next hours and days and weeks is introducing you to aspects of the Anomaly Archives, the different collections that we house, and why we think we're a worthy cause for you to donate to. One of the things that I'm going to be showing y'all is our Streamathon counter, our pledge counter. And our goal, of course, this year is to raise $20,000. That is our annual budget. But right now, we're right at about $260. As you can see there on the right, little Patty, the Bigfoot, is being beamed aboard the flying saucer. As we raise funds, she will be raised up into the saucer. I'd like to introduce our first presenter, and that is Ed Conroy.
Thank you, Smiles, and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, and I want to join with Smiles in thanking everybody who has helped and thanking you in advance, just thanking you for being here. I'm proud and I'm happy that Smiles and the other board members of Anomaly Archives invited me to join their ranks and help to grow what I consider to be really a vitally important organization for us. I thank you then for your presence, and I'm sure that you're going to have many fascinating experiences watching what will be an excellent array of presentations by the authors and experts who have volunteered to give you a taste of the extraordinary information in the archives. The Anomaly Archives are a resource for you and people like you who care about the preservation of knowledge about the anomalies, wisdom traditions, and paranormal phenomena of our world, and the dissemination of that knowledge to the next generation. Anomaly Archives exists not as a pristine collection of esoteric knowledge hidden away in a monastery like the labyrinthine library in Umberto Eco's Name of the Rose. No, it exists to be shared, to be used by all of us and many others. Thank you all very much.
I am so excited to bring on Zelia Edgar. Hey, Zelia, how are you doing?
Hey, fine, thank you. Well, I'm very excited to be here today. So yeah, thank you so much for inviting me on. I feel very fortunate that I've grown up having it be almost normalized, the paranormal, as opposed to being something that simply isn't talked about. And yeah, so I have had this just lifelong interest in the unexplained, and I've been seriously researching it for over a decade now. In that time, I have served as the Wisconsin State Director and a certified field investigator for the Wisconsin Mutual UFO Network. And so today, I'm actually going to be discussing something which definitely blurs the lines between these different fields of research, and that is the orb phenomenon. And so what are orbs exactly? They're really just kind of a subset of the more general anomalous luminous phenomena. The first thing that people think of when they hear the word orbs is they think of ghost orbs. And unfortunately, when they think of ghost orbs, they're not actually thinking about orbs at all. They're thinking about those photos of dust motes, condensation, unfortunately bugs. I think that probably the next field that's most closely associated with the orb phenomena would be the UFO field, and with good reason. Right now, the National UFO Reporting Center currently has over 7,000 cases labeled as fireballs. However, orbs are also spotted in conjunction with cryptids. One great account, of course, is Momo, the infamous Missouri monster, which was observed in Louisiana, Missouri in the summer of 1972. Kind of move into spooklight territory. Spooklights, of course, are these recurrent sightings of these balls of light, which happen in many different places, such as the Gurdon light in Arkansas. It's this multicolored light which is seen to bob up and down a railway and has been observed for years. So, yeah, orbs, I mean, they are just, It is. I think that they are heavily associated, again, with ghosts and UFOs, not so much with cryptids, but they're just prevalent and ever present across these different fields. And so that pattern is definitely something to focus on.
We think of these things as anomalous, thus the Anomaly Archives.
Yep.
Like, oh, it's unusual to see or experience these strange phenomena, but what really we're the normal archives, actually, is what we should be called. Is these things actually seem to be very normal. Yes, indeed. And there were so many other great presentations that day, including the epic presentation by Paul Kimball talking about his work on Haunted, the Canadian TV paranormal investigation series that he did. Here is a
so I'm standing there
clip
and or walking along the bridge rather, and I hear footsteps behind me. That was, sorry, I skipped the lead in. So I start to hear footsteps on the cobblestones behind me. Yeah, okay. So I turn around to see if there's anybody walking behind me. I'm actually kind of hoping there is, because if it's a human being, well, that's a good thing. If I don't see anything, that's not a good thing. So I turn around, I don't see anything, but I feel something. So I spin around, nobody there, footsteps stop, and then boom, a force on my shoulder, and I know it well. I might have done it once or twice when I was working with the police, you know, when a cop grabs you by the shoulder kind of thing. And that is exactly what I felt. So my reaction, this is the only time I can pretend to be a ghost hero or tough guy, is I turn around, because even though I think I'm being followed by shadow demons or whatever, for all I know, somebody could have snuck up and maybe I'm getting mugged. So I'm still partly in that world. So I spin around, plant myself like I'm going to have to pop somebody. There's nobody there. There's nobody making footsteps. So they spin me one direction, then I get on the shoulder, spin me the other direction, nobody. So as the kids say, I booked. You know, I ran. I don't care who was in Chesky Krumlov that night that saw me running through the streets of Chesky. I actually kind of got lost briefly. I just, boom, off the bridge. I'm going back wherever the Wizard's Castle is, or a police station, or whatever, a bus to Prague, whatever I can find. That's where I'm headed.
And there is so much more of interest in his talk, which led into actual 4 full-on episodes of Haunted, the TV series. But yeah, we had such great content that day. That was our first Streamathon, November 21st. And it started with a welcome from me, and then our keynote speech from Ed Conroy. You saw a clip from Ed being our latest board member and the author of the truly fantastic report on communion. Of course, then you saw clips from Zelia Edgar, and we played a video from Massimo Teodarani with his ambient music. You can hear that separately and in high fidelity by going to our YouTube channel. We also had a presentation by Texas cryptozoologist Ken Gerhard. You can find all the archives of this are at our website, and that links through to our YouTube archive. A fascinating presentation by Walter Bosley on Delshau, the airship mystery, and his ideas about the NIMSA legacy connected to Delshau's reporting on the NIMSA group. And then there was that Paul Kimball presentation, Ghosts, Shadow Beings, Demons, and Other High Strangeness on Canada's East Coast, which, as I say, led into phenomenal showing of 4 episodes of Haunted. Great stuff. Really just so thankful that that Paul gave us access to that, and it's still there. But those full episodes of Haunted will be going away. So if you haven't watched them, go to the YouTube archives, search through, find the original long Streamathon episode parts, because they will be going away at the end of this Streamathon. I'm not saying exactly when, but the end of the Streamathon is this Saturday. So folks, go see Haunted and support all of these speakers, and there's more to come. So coming up are some clips from day 2. That was just day 1 of this 6-day extravaganza. So here is a clip from our first speaker on our second weekend.
Okay, Antonio Rivera, who is the man in the center, he was a true Renaissance man. He was quite probably the most important ufologist in Spain. and certainly the most famous one among the English-speaking members of the UFO field. He wrote dozens of books, not just about UFOs, but also about submarine exploration and science fiction novels, including at least 4 books devoted entirely to the UMO affair. The first one being the one shown to the left of your screen, A Perfect Case, or Un Caso Perfecto, first published in 1969. This man spoke and wrote in 6 languages. He was very smart. But as my friend Michael M. Hughes, who is, among other things, he's a professional magician, he once told me that the problem is that the smarter the man, the easier he is to fool. This is something that magicians use to their advantage. Okay, the man to the right, Rafael Farriols, was a respected, bright, and wealthy industrialist from Barcelona who had successfully applied his studies in chemistry in order to make his company one of the biggest exporters of acrylic plastic in all of Europe. He was interested in things like horse breeding, philosophy, photography, but the reason why we are remembering him today is because of his active interest in UFOs. So Rivera and Farriols started to investigate the story and wrote about it, judging it a perfect case. Well, hence the title of their book. And this was actually a reference to J. Allen Hynek, the Close Encounters man, who had always hoped for a perfect case to finally arrive to meet the harsh standards of the skeptic community. And if you ask me, it's kind of like a tall order saying, this is the one. This is the silver bullet we were hoping for. But, you know, that's what Rivera and Farriols did. And interestingly enough, in the book, Rivera and Farriols omitted any reference to the letters received by Sesma and his Madrid group.
Again, this is a phenomenal presentation by Miguel Romero, aka RPJ Red Pill Junkie, who did that awesome artwork for our new merch store, which features all these different characters. You can see an even better close-up right there. Miguel is an amazing artist, and this was his first presentation, not this particular presentation, but a month or so ago, he did this presentation, or an abbreviated version of it, for the Alternate Realities, Strange Realities Conference 2 by our good friends Adam Sane and the Conspiranormal podcast. Anyway, you should go and check out that entire presentation. It's over an hour long and is really fantastic and very informative about the UMO case, which not everybody is very familiar with. But it's one of these cases that went on for a long time, involved a wide variety of phenomena that are often associated with the UFO phenomenon. Am I scaring you yet with the scare quotes? No, just by being me. Okay. Another fantastic presentation was the one right after that one on our second week, and that is by Professor Wham. Oh my gosh, this is such an important presentation, and her work, her dissertation is so important. But here's just a very quick excerpt from the very beginning of this.
Action was what I had witnessed. Now, the next day, there was supposed to be at this conference, there was supposed to be this, or there is, I think they still do this, there was this large kind of auditorium-sized group meeting. So all the different contactee groups would get together and they'd sort of have this large mass meeting where people who had not had an opportunity to tell their stories in any of these smaller groups, if they signed up, they could tell this entire large group their contactee story. So, you know, I went to that, and this was more of a public meeting. So the first 2 or 3 people stood up, and they shared pretty standard contactee experiences, including various spiritual or prophetic messages that they had gotten from their contactors. And then this woman got up. She was an older woman. She had a very slight accent, but I couldn't place it. And she began to tell the story of the time that she had been awakened in the middle of the night and taken away by tall strangers dressed in odd uniforms. They had taken her and her sister. She didn't know where her parents were. She and her sister were stripped naked and subjected to humiliating, seemingly medical exams that actually had some sexual content for being marked in a particularly painful way. So everybody was sort of on the edge of their seat waiting for her to reveal the message from the superior alien masters, because that's how all the other narratives had been. And then suddenly she said, yes, and I still wear the scars of that mark today. And she rolled up her sleeve, and on her arm was the numbered tattoo of the brand given her as a child by the Nazi soldiers who had captured her and her family and taken her and her sister to a concentration camp. Now, she had not been ranting she had been building up to this point in the story, and then she went on and very quietly, it was really startling how she did this quietly with intensity, not ranting at anybody, but she basically excoriated the crowd. She said, it's not that I don't believe that many of you have had these contactee experiences, she said, but I have issue with the implied messages that many of you are delivering about saving genetic material and that a superior race somehow needs your DNA. And she observed that many of them, most of them in the room, were white. And she said, how do you know that you aren't playing right into a story that has been foisted on us before? And I mean, you could have heard a pin drop. And I just sat there and went, whoa, listening to her. And people didn't really know what to say. And so she got down off the podium and left. And there were these couple women that were sitting behind me, and they were muttering to each other. I could overhear them. And one of them said, oh, poor dear, she's obviously had a really hard time, in a really patronizing way. I had personally found her to be really articulate, and there was something about what she said that connected to what I had witnessed in the previous room. And so the seeds of this dissertation were born. Now, I didn't begin to write about it until the fall of 2000, and that was after about 6 more years of research. And by that time, I had amassed a wealth of material. So this is what I found. Yes, and he's got the first slide up there.
A fantastic presentation, which did attract a little bit of attention. At least one online personality wrote up a brief review of her presentation, commenting on how powerful and interesting it was. So, way to go, Professor Wham. The rest of that day was filled with even more great stuff. There's, of course, RPJ's lecture, Professor Wham's. We had an extended lecture from Brent Rains on the myths and mysteries of the UFO Matrix. He, of course, is the author of a book on John Keel and has been long researching and still continues to investigate and publish on these subjects. And due to a schedule mishap where the presenter was not able to attend, Brent went long, did great, and also let me play a video of his interviewing folks at one of the past Mothman festivals. And then, of course, we had Canadian ufologist Chris Rutkowski, who has donated his collection to the University of Manitoba to archive his personal archives and collection, and is very much preserving the legacy of his efforts at investigating the UFO phenomenon. And then we had a special screening by Craig Baldwin's fantastically strange mashup of found footage, but with some actual shot footage of A Strange Tale about Jack Parsons, L. Ron Hubbard, Aleister Crowley, and many others. A very fun romp called Mock-Up on Moo. Yes, I highly recommend you watch that if you missed it. Go check that out. Again, won't be there very much longer, so enjoy it while you can. Meanwhile, so we moved on to the third day, which featured even more great content, including my introduction and Don Webb on the Egyptian concept of the soul. Don is an amazingly interesting fellow who writes a lot of dark fiction and is no stranger to the left-hand path of the esoteric and occult, as the former head of the Temple of Set. And then we had a very epic presentation by Dr. Greg Little, The Mystery of American Mounds and Earthworks, that was phenomenal and fantastic, and I highly recommend it. And then an even more amazing presentation by Joshua Cutchin, Stock and Trade, Expressions of the Changeling Motif in Alien Hybrid Lore. Fantastic stuff. We then had an extended intermission that actually featured a rare presentation from Adam Gorightly, our good friend, the crackpot historian, on were the early UFO contactees ritual magicians. This was presented at a event organized by Skylar Alphagren of the League of Western Fortean Intermediatists, Lo-Fi, their little mini-con in October 2008 in Los Angeles. And then we also played some awesome visual art by Ken Adams and much more. And then we had a great presentation by Paul H. Smith, former military remote viewer, on religious, mystical, and out-of-body experiences, how science thinks it has explained them, and why science is wrong. Good stuff. And then we showed a clip of, well, we showed the entirety of Remote Viewing Memories by the director, Garrett Harkowick, who would be our guest the following week. This is a great little found footage documentary featuring lots of footage of Ed Dames, the infamous remote viewer. And then we also played some more Alien Dreamtime from Ken Adams featuring Terrence McKenna, and this great presentation from Joseph Green on why the state hates conspiracy, and ended it with this great interviews with the creators of The Hill in the Hole, as well as one of the actors in it, Adam Gorightly. And we've got some clips from those things there, and we're coming up right now. Here is...
Because the real condition of human being, we can have a lot of different thoughts going on, and impulses, and moralities, and being pulled in a lot of directions. If you have a polypsychism, say that word again, polypsychism, meaning you think you're made out of a lot of different parts, then you can understand your existence just plain better. Now, warrior societies, as the late Dr. Stephen Polome used to point out, tend to be polypsychic. In other words, there are a lot of parts of yourself, visible and invisible, that do different things. And you can become aware of how some of these different parts act within you. It's a major reason why there's a lot of good things to look at the Egyptian model. Let's look at another aspect of the Egyptian model. In some cultures, particularly those that are attractive to esoteric practitioners, let's say the many different religions that come out of India.
Not sure why. But this has been a mystery for a long time, why they did this. Here's another place where they did it. In this case, there's 12 arranged in a circle. This is from Ohio. Again, out of the Smithsonian this comes. And this one's really interesting because the top three individuals had their heads severed, and the skeleton and the skulls were placed between the legs. Now, I have measured these, and these three skeletons that have the heads placed between the legs are much taller than everyone else. I don't know what that means. In the Kanawha River Valley, there is a mound in South Charleston, and this is the display, the archaeological display off of that. And again, you have one large 7 to 8 foot tall skeleton in the center, and then it is encircled by a series of other skeletons. Once again, it's a great mystery. Nobody really knows precisely what that's about. Here's another mound in South Charleston. Ancient Aliens did a show and went to this site. When this was excavated by the Smithsonian, there were 2 7-foot skeletons excavated. When I say 7 feet, I mean 7 feet and above.
There's obviously another side of the production story, Smiles, that would take it would take probably a podcast series to get into some of the risks and gambles. But I think it paid off at the end of the day. I mean,
well, it was pretty crazed. I've never been in, never did this before, but it was like the principal shooting, I guess you call it, was a week and a half. And we were in like filming in 3 different states, and we'd finish filming one place, and it's like a rock and roll band going to the next show, drive 250 miles through a storm, and
monsoon season.
Punk rock tour van filmmaking.
The Hill on the Hole was supposed to be like our mainstream project. Like this was supposed to appeal to like normies, like our parents or something like that. We thought that's what this was, and it wasn't until we put it on Amazon last spring that we were like, no, we did not quite accomplish that aim. But this is as A to B as I think we could possibly get. We might be able to push it, with something else. No idea, but yeah, Chris and I have long debated the merits of my band's Miami Vice.
I think I've come around to that I like that. No, it's funny that the Twin Peaks stuff, I mean, I think you're totally right about that, Smiles. Like Bill and I have talked about this too, and I think I've talked about this before, with some people that especially if you read Twin Secret History written by Mark Frost, and I think it was really Mark Frost who brought a lot of this into it. David Lynch definitely has the sort of the influence that I think comes from more Vedic, cosmology, and certainly his interest in like transcendental meditation. But yeah, Mark Frost is writing stuff that in many ways is like Kenneth Grant fan fiction. If anybody doesn't know Kenneth Grant, he was essentially like an acolyte of Aleister Crowley, and he was writing these books that were essentially linking H.P. Lovecraft mythos in a real like magic with a K way to sort of Crowleyan, these Typhonian current of like real ceremonial magic that was tying in with, everything from UFOs to like New Age stuff. I mean, Kenneth Grant throws the kitchen sink in there. And
indeed. Oh man, that is a great discussion before and after the showing of The Hill and the Hole. I hope you'll go check that out, and they've released that on Blu-ray now, so if you've not seen it, please go buy it and support them and all the other speakers from this and all the other Streamathons. Moving right along real quickly here to the December 12th, the 4th week of Streamathon. We had these amazing presentations from Michael Hughes, Aaron Gullius, Micah Hanks, Ed Conroy, a special screening of my lecture on my own mystery hum experience, which led into a brief introduction by Steve Colhayes, who is the mystery hum experiencer in Connecticut, who has come up with what he calls the GPS hypothesis, the gas pipeline syndrome hypothesis, about the nature of the mystery hum and what he thinks is the source. And then we aired this fantastic documentary by director Garrett Harkowicz called Doom Vibrations, with guests Garrett Harkowicz and Steve Colhayes. Great conversation before and after that as well. Just fantastic stuff there. You can go see all the links there. We only have a couple of real quick clips. I was running out of time before tonight's show, but what did I just do? There we go. And here is a couple of quick clips.
Much. It says, I've spent a lot of time. I've spent a good part of my life working with tarot, studying tarot, and there's just a lot of BS out there. So we're going to address some of that, and hopefully you learn something, or maybe you might get a little, angry because it's something you've believed for a long time. But I do have a disclaimer, so let's get forward. Let's get towards that. Okay, here, and let's go. First of all, disclaimer. That is, much of what you're about to see and hear is an opinion. Tarot reading is an art, not a science. You are free to disagree with my opinions, but the historical information in this presentation is backed by rigorous academic research. Also, naughty words ahead. I'll try to keep them at a minimum. So my story. I discovered tarot back around 1976-ish when I picked up this James Bond 007 tarot deck, which I still have to this day.
Really appreciate it. Folks can go to michaelmhughes.com and or you can go to our website and find the links there as well. And of course, he's got a number of books, fiction and nonfiction, that you can purchase to help support Michael's work. And really, just thank you so much, Michael. I look forward to
support this guy here. Support all the great work he does. So
thank you.
Please, I'm going to make a contribution, and I hope you guys will too. And thank you for letting me help with this, because it's a great cause. So
really appreciate it.
Loss of knowledge. And so when we try to document the history of a phenomenon, very much like the Anomaly Archives does, documenting all kinds of things, preserve historical records, collections, personal collections, people's actual personal book collections, their files, their own original research, these kinds of things. That information, if it can be preserved, it can be useful to future decades. Maybe future scientists who are more open-minded or who have had less exposure to an establishment worldview that prevents them from really seeing the benefit of and the merit of the study of these kinds of topics. And if we can preserve that information right now, if we can do what the Anomaly Archives, if it can continue, as I know it will, if we can preserve the information in the way that they are doing, maybe there will be future generations that will be able to do even more with what we're collecting and learning about today than we've been able to do. That's my hope, at least. And so before we really get into this lecture, I really implore people at home, if you have not yet, please consider supporting this endeavor. Please donate to the Anomaly Archives here with the Streamathon. Smiles and the gang have very graciously given of themselves, given incredible amounts of free content. And they've gotten other people, including myself, Aaron before me, and all kinds of other folks who have been contributors, who have given our time. Please consider supporting this effort, because again, it really may mean great importance to our own future and those who come well after us. If we are able to take that action today, it really means a lot.
All right, folks. Well, thank you for bearing with me on this rebroadcast of an old clip show. Those were some clips from just some of the weeks, all but I think the final week, and not a clip of every presenter. There were just so many presenters, but all those presentations are still available over at our YouTube channel. And it was a pleasure doing that. I still can't believe it's been 2.5 years since that broadcast, that series of 6 weeks of broadcasts, over 40 or 50 hours of content. The Anomaly Archives still needs your help. We are struggling to maintain our situation. We are still in storage, and it breaks my heart. But hopefully there is a way forward that will emerge soon, and you can keep track of what's going on over at anomalyarchives.org. We do have a variety of interesting projects on the horizon, and so please just keep watching the skies, and good luck to us all. Good night.